Well, greetings, friends, and welcome to today's Extraordinary Connection. My name is Pastor Devin, and I serve at Romeo United Methodist Church, and I'm so glad to have you joining me for these few moments, these minutes we take to spend some time in God's Word together, to reflect on God's activity in our lives and to look for those blessings. I know this may come as a bit of a rhetorical question for us today, but have you ever had things not turn out the way you wanted them to? Despite your best laid plans, your efforts, trying to see that vision through, trying to put in the necessary work to make it happen, in the end, things just don't seem to go your way. Has that ever happened to you? Just a couple weeks back was a very different Thanksgiving for many people across our country. Not being able to have those large family gatherings meant that there were a great number of people who found themselves preparing a Thanksgiving dinner for the very first time. My house was one of those houses. We prepared our own meal, whereas normally we rely on one of the grandparents, one of my parents or my wife's parents to make that meal. But not to brag, things did go pretty well for us. Only major hiccup we had was the gravy was a little, much too salty. But all in all, it was a good meal. But in those couple weeks since Thanksgiving, I've seen the result of some other people's efforts to make their first Thanksgiving meal. And it seems that many had struggles with the turkey. The turkey was the most difficult part for many as they tried to prepare that meal. And there's one video in particular that it really made me stop and laugh. And so I wanted to share it with you that you might get a chuckle out of it as well. If you haven't seen this, let me play this video for you.
What are you doing, Uncle Jack?
I'm gonna pull the turkey out. It's just
You think it's burnt?
We got a burnt turkey, guys!
it's just the skin. Relax.
I have to say, I love the optimism. Is it burnt? No. It's just the skin. Don't worry. I have a sneaky suspicion that their meal may not have included much deep-fried turkey like they had planned for this year. And they weren't alone. As I said, I saw the results of other people's efforts to make that turkey, maybe for the first time. And maybe in all, that's symbolic of some of your experiences in 2020 as well. A burnt to a crisp turkey. Because the past few months, they've required us to try some different things, haven't they? In our own lives, for those children and teachers in school, for people going to work, for us in worship and doing ministry through the church. We haven't been able to count on some of those normal ways of doing things. So we've been forced to try something new, like deep frying a turkey. And perhaps, and I hope you've had some successes. Maybe some of those new endeavors that you've done, they've been beneficial for you, for your family, for your job, for your church. Maybe they've left you excited about future opportunities, about expanding on those things and doing them in new and exciting ways. I hope that's the case. But maybe you've also had some duds along the way. You've had some burnt turkeys. Some of those things you've tried to do, things you were excited about doing, things that you worked hard to accomplish, but still in the end, it seems like they fell flat. You may have had to deal with some feelings or frustration, some disappointment in how things turned out. And at some point, you may find yourself thinking that you don't want to try to do the next new thing because you're afraid that it again may just fall flat. Today, though, I wanted to encourage you, please try again. Try the next new thing. Continue to look for those new and different ways to do things, because you never know who your efforts have made a difference to. You may think that that new ministry that you tried was a failure because it didn't reach as many people as you had envisioned. But you know what? Maybe it reached the one that it needed to reach. Maybe it wasn't supposed to reach dozens or hundreds of people. Maybe it was supposed to reach the one. Because we all know how Jesus feels about that one. And if our shepherd is willing to go after an individual sheep, then our ministries that reach the one are just as valuable in God's eyes. I would also remind you of the words from Romans chapter 8, verse 28. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Maybe you cannot see the good in that burnt turkey of a ministry attempt, but God still can. And God will still use those efforts for God's good, to bring God's love and hope to others. It might very well have been the time spent in planning and preparation that were valuable to you or valuable to another. We don't always know how or why things happen. And we don't always know the effects that those efforts have. But just because we've deemed it a burnt turkey doesn't mean that it wasn't still a worthwhile effort. Perhaps lessons were learned on what to do different. Perhaps another was introduced to the love of Christ because of our efforts. So, my friends, as we continue to move through this Advent season, as we continue to reach out and try to share the hope, peace, joy, and love of this season in new and different ways, I implore you, continue to try and do those new and different things. Reach out with God's love to others. And even if at the end of the day you find yourself pulling a burnt turkey out of the pan, know that God was and God is still at work through your efforts. And those efforts to love others in God's name, they are never wasted. Till next time, I hope you all have a blessed Advent season. Stay safe, take care, and God bless.